The Wisdom of Crowds, next book in the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, which is the newest installment of the First Law series. It's coming out on the 9th of September. It is so close I can taste it. I, for one, am personally very excited for that book to release. And in honor of that, I thought it might be a good idea to make a video going through some sort of theories, predictions, speculation for what the Wisdom of Crowds might entail for us. What's gonna be in there? What secrets does it hold? What questions from the previous two books will we get the answers to? Got a bunch of things I've written down in my little red book here. I'm gonna go through them and sort of talk through them. These are a mix of things that I think are gonna happen or things that I just want to happen. Some things that I'm not sure if they will happen. So basically anything. Just covering all my bases there. Oh, and this should go without saying, but spoiler warning for the entire First Law series, but especially A Little Hatred and The Trouble with Peace. We're gonna be talking about the spoilers in those. It's gonna be hard to not to. So yeah, full spoilers. I might talk about other things in the First Law. Nothing's off the table. That's been your spoiler warning. We're going full spoilers in this video. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into some Wisdom of Crowd predictions. So in Little Hatred and Trouble with Peace, there's a few throwaway lines that give the indication that Bayaz is having some sort of dispute with his siblings, the other members of the Order of the Magi. I definitely think in Wisdom that is gonna come to the forefront. It's been very much a background plot in the previous two books, but I definitely think that it's gonna come into the forefront in the third one. He's mentioned at times that he's appeared in the previous two books that he's having arguments with them and he's getting annoyed at them. And when you've got sibling disputes and you happen to be the Order of the Magi, that's gonna spell bad things for everyone else involved. That usually involves some sort of city getting blown up or something. So I think that's gonna come to the forefront and have some very bad consequences for some of the main characters in the series. I also think that there are various other agents of the Order of the Magi who are in amongst the main characters that we don't necessarily know who they are, and they're gonna start making moves and putting more pressure on our main characters to do the Magi's bidding.
Leave me to do my dark bidding on the internet.
What are you bidding on?
I'm bidding on the table.
It's all gonna come to a head in some way. Savine and Zuri now. I didn't pick up on this until I saw other people point it out, but there is a very good chance that Zuri is in fact Ishri, who is just maintaining a persona as Savine's assistant. So much emphasis was placed, especially in book 2, on how much Savine trusts Zuri, and that just seems like it's imminent foreshadowing to a betrayal happening. So I definitely think whatever game she's playing at is gonna get revealed, and whatever Zuri/Ishri's overall plan is, I do think Savine is gonna feel betrayed by it. It's not gonna be a good time for her. Someone else it's not gonna be a good time for, well, everyone in the series. It's First Law after all. But her husband, Leo. When we last saw him, he'd lost some of his pride, some of his respect from people he knew, a couple of his friends, and also a bit of a leg. He lost that as well. One of the big questions is, in the third book, will Leo find any kind of redemption for what he's done? Will he manage to overcome his internalized homophobia? Will he make amends with Durand and his mother? I personally am not sure if we will see that much redemption for Leo. His final POV chapter in Trouble with Peace, reading his internal monologue in that, it felt a lot like Glockter in the original First Law series. I get the impression that, maybe not for the whole book, but certainly like the first half of it, Leo is gonna be very embittered and cynical due to his injuries, and he's gonna feel very dour. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of self-pity and him continuing to blame everyone else but him for his problems. And I think there's a fair chance that he will end up quite similar to Sandan Glockter, how he is in the first trilogy. One of the standout new characters from Trouble with Peace was Jappo Mercato, an instant fan favorite. The question is, will we be seeing more of him? His chapters in Trouble with Peace would definitely highlight the interviews that he has with Orso and Leo specifically. Interviews, I guess. Meetings is probably a more accurate word. They're not hiring him. In fact, what Orso wants him to do is quite literally nothing. I reckon there is a chance we'll see more of him. I reckon Joe Abercrombie is not blind to how popular he was and will want to include him more. Also, when last we left off, Jappo had allied himself with Orso. Rikke had also allied herself with Orso, giving him the heads up about Leo's plans. So Rikke and Jappo are sort of connected via those alliances, which means it's not unfeasible that those three groups, the Styrians, the North, and the Union, would meet, which could even entail Jappo meeting Shivers, his father. Will Shivers realize that Jappo is his son? Who's to say? But it would definitely be a very interesting meeting to happen. Especially because when we see Shivers with Rikke in Little Hatred and Trouble with Peace, he definitely fulfills a sort of father figure role, or maybe more like very protective uncle or guard dog. But based on his relationship with Rikke, I do think he would actually make a pretty good dad. If he realized that Jappo was his son, I think he'd step into the role pretty well. It'd obviously take him some time to get there. It's a bit of a sudden blow to suddenly realize you've got a son out there in the world. But you know the old saying, you lose an eye, gain a son. It's a very common saying, everyone says it. But yeah, I do think Jappo and Shivers meeting is definitely not off the table. I think that is a definite possibility. In Trouble with Peace, we got some surprise reappearances from Vitari and Shenkt, and also Korib and the Shanker. The Shanker have been making more attacks in the north, and I think that might come into play a bit more. I also think, and would love it if it happened, that we will see more of Vitari and Shenkt and whatever they're up to. I think it's possible that Vick will end up siding with Vitari and Shenkt, because where she is right now with the breakers and the burners, I don't think she's standing on the side of the winners. I think she's got herself in a very dangerous crosshairs, especially because the breakers and the burners are going after places that Bayaz has an investment in, and opposing Bayaz is a very dangerous place to be. But since Vick is pretty comfortable shifting alliances and standing with the winners, I do think by the end of the series she might manage it, and the winners may indeed be Vitari and Shenkt in whatever they're planning. Also, something that I would love to see, and I know I'm not alone in this, is seeing Shenkt go up against Yoru Sulfur. Eater versus Eater, I really want to see that fight. I don't know what the context for it would be, but I just think it would be awesome. I think that at some point in this book, Lord Isha will definitely get his comeuppance. He was one of the main instigators into talking Leo into doing his old rebellion, and he was also the reason that Broad and his family had to leave their home. He's one of the more insidious members of the Union politics, and he's just caused a lot of mayhem in the time that he's been around in the books so far. He's caused a lot of people some misery, and I think it would be very satisfying indeed to see him get killed in some way. These books make you bloodthirsty, they really do. Speaking of characters who might die, I think there is a pretty good chance that Clover will die in this book. At the end of both of the last two books, he's betrayed whoever he was with at the time. My feeling is he might try and betray whoever he's with at the end of Wisdom of Crowns, but it's going to backfire on him and he will end up being the one who dies or the one who gets betrayed. I think that would be quite narratively satisfying, and I could see that being the sort of thing that Joe Abercrombie would write. Or maybe he'll just betray someone again and continue being out there. That is also the kind of thing Joe Abercrombie might write. Of course, he's currently working for Rikke last time we left off. And Rikke, now do I have some thoughts about where her storyline is gonna go? So first of all, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this assumption, Rikke definitely no longer has the long eye. I definitely think she got rid of it when she went to see Korib in Trouble with Peace, and since then she has been faking having the long eye and faking all her predictions since then. I'm pretty much certain that that is the case. How that will play into the story, I'm not sure. Maybe some people will try and see her and get her to predict something, the outcome of a battle or something, and she'll get it wrong. I could see something like that happening, but I am sure that she is faking it. She no longer has the long eye. Speaking of Rikke, and this is the question that really gets me excited, that I really want to know the answer to. What is arguably the biggest mystery set up by the series so far. The owl ate the lamb prophecy. So obviously in Little Hatred, when Rikke still has the long eye, she makes the prophecy, I saw a wolf eat the sun, a lion ate the wolf, and then a lamb ate the lion, and an owl ate the lamb. So far it's pretty clear cut what each of those represents. The wolf eating the sun is Stour Nightfall defeating a Union army, then Leo's the lion and he defeats Stour, Orso is the young lamb and he defeated Leo at the end of the last book, and what that means is Orso is currently in the crosshairs of this prophecy, and the identity of the owl is still a mystery. So those are the questions. What will happen to Orso, and who is the owl? How is that gonna resolve itself? I do think that Rikke is the most likely candidate for the owl, because of the main characters in this new series, she's the only one who's not really been affected by the prophecy yet, other than being the one who makes it. Also, the fact that she had the long eye, and owls have a very good eyesight and they can see a long distance, does seem to fit with that part of the prophecy. I think Rikke could very easily be the owl. I think that would be very satisfying because she's one of the main characters, and it would be very dramatic because obviously she and Orso, last we left off, have a pretty good relationship, and if they end up on opposite sides of a conflict and she has to defeat him in some way, that'll have a good emotional weight to it, which will be heartbreaking, but will make a good story. So imagining Rikke is the owl, I think her killing Orso intentionally is unlikely. I don't think that's gonna happen. It's possible that she might do it accidentally or inadvertently, like if they end up on opposing sides of a conflict, maybe her army defeats Orso's army. Maybe Clover, while working for Rikke, will try and kill Orso. I will say, I keep saying kill Orso. I don't actually think that Orso will be killed. I think he will live to the end of the book. He might get maimed, or he might suffer some big defeat on a battlefield, or lose some political advantage that he had. I mean, he's the king at this point. He has quite a lot of political advantage, but it is seemingly evident that something bad's gonna happen to him. And obviously he was the victor at the end of the last book. He's at the top of the ladder, so he is primed for some kind of fall. Another candidate for who the owl in the prophecy is Bayaz himself. The owl could easily represent Bayaz because owls are generally considered wise creatures, wise, wizard, magi, Bayaz. And who's to say, maybe Bayaz has eaten a mouse in his time. Also, owls are birds of prey, they're predators, and while Bayaz isn't a literal bird, he does have a certain bloodthirsty streak to him. He also would have a strong dislike of Orso. He would definitely associate Orso with Jezzel, and if Orso wanted ever to make some changes for the greater good, Bayaz would definitely want to shut that down. He'd be like, no, only if it benefits me. Plus the fact that Bayaz just wants to have control over the Union. He wants to puppeteer everything according to his will, and Orso is the king of the Union, so obviously Bayaz would want to control him, and because Orso wants to do more independent things, there's bound to be some sort of conflict there. So I definitely think Bayaz would have reason to move against Orso, and that could be what the prophecy entails. There is one other thing that I thought of that the prophecy could foretell, and this is a little more roundabout than the rest of the prophecy has been so far, but I still think there's a chance this could be something that happens. What it could be is that by the end of the book, the monarchy of the Union will be dismantled and replaced by a parliamentary system. There'll be no more kings and queens, there'll instead be a ruling governing body, which means Orso will be demoted from king into some guy. He might get a say on the council, but he certainly won't be as powerful anymore. A lot of his power will have been replaced by this parliamentary body, and why that relates to the prophecy is because the collective term for owls is a parliament. You see a bunch of owls anywhere? That's a parliament of owls right there. And so the owl eating the lamb could be the parliament replacing Orso as the main body of power within the Union. That could be the defeat that Orso suffers. I also think that might happen because something that I very much appreciate about this series is that we see technology and society evolve as the story goes on. We don't just stay in the medieval technology side. We see cannons in the heroes, and we see technology getting built up, and we're now in this age of steam and innovation, factories and things. And as well as technology progressing into a more modern era, I think it's absolutely a possibility that the society will also progress forward, and we will end up with something like what we have currently in England maybe, where there is a royal family but they're more figureheads than people with actual power, and the actual power comes from prime ministers and the houses of parliament. It would be a big shift in the political landscape of the First Law series, but I definitely think it's something that could well happen. It might not happen in this book, but I do think eventually something like that is gonna come along, whether in the Wisdom of Crowds or in a later First Law installation. But yeah, since Rick has said it in the first book, it's been driving me nuts to know what the answer is to what the prophecy means and how it's gonna all end up resolved in the thing. The owl ate the lamb prophecy has just been sitting on an armchair in my head, eating crisps and watching me sweat over the meaning of it, analysing every aspect of it. So I think that whole prophecy is definitely my biggest question for what is going to happen in the Wisdom of Crowds. That's the thing that I'm most excited to find the resolution for. And that's pretty much it. Those are all of my prophecies / speculation, prophecies? Predictions, more accurately. I guess you could call them prophecies. If I was right about anything, call that a prophecy. There you go, I'm a prophet. But yeah, that's all of my speculation for the Wisdom of Crowds. Those are the questions I'm most looking forward to getting the answers to. I dare say that I will have been wrong about a few things, if not everything that I've just said, since Abercrombie does have a way of throwing twists and surprises in there. But yeah, those are the things that I think might happen in the Wisdom of Crowds. If you've got any predictions or things you want to happen or things you think will happen in the Wisdom of Crowds, please do leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you're most looking forward to finding out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more stuff from me. I'll probably do some more First Law content in time, and I've got some other stuff going as well. Once the Wisdom of Crowds comes out and I read it, I'll definitely be doing a review, and maybe I'll do a tier list for all of the books in First Law, so look forward to that. And without further ado, thank you all so much for watching this video, and as always, I'll see you in my next one. Will Shivers realise that Jappo is his son? Bleh.